What's up, guys? UFC 308, the most stacked card of the year, has just been announced, so let's get right into it and start talking about the first fight on the card. We have Max Holloway versus Ilia Topuria for a featherweight title fight. Let's talk about Ilia Topuria. Now, this guy is coming off a knockout win over Alexander Volkanovski, who was top 5 pound for pound at the time when he knocked him out. This guy is not to be underestimated. He's the new king of the featherweight division. He's like 27, 28 years old. He's young, he's fit, he's ready. Now, something to be noted, when he was watching Max Holloway flatline Justin Gaethje at UFC 300, he looked like he crapped his pants. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's some nerves for him going into this fight. With that being said, there's no way that this guy doesn't show up on the night. You know that this guy's going to show up, he's going to be in shape, he's going to be ready to go, so there's no doubts on that end. He has some of the best boxing we've ever seen in the UFC, let alone in the featherweight division, but it's going to be interesting to see how he matches up with Max Holloway. Max Holloway has an unbreakable chin and crazy cardio, and it's going to be interesting to see if Ilia Topuria can put him away. Now let's talk about Max, and the biggest thing with Max is there was a huge narrative change after his knockout at UFC 300. Everyone thought he had pillow hands, everyone knew he was skilled, he had great cardio, great boxing, and he was always ready to go, but everyone was like, oh, this guy's a point fighter, this guy, he'll piece you up, but he's not going to put you away. Well, look what happened to Justin Gaethje. Max broke his nose with a spinning back kick and then flatlined him with 1 second to go in the 5th round. This guy has absolutely leveled up, and coming off of that performance, he's going to have all the confidence in the world going into this title fight. Obviously, the weight cut down to 45 is going to be a little different than to 55, but 45 is Max's natural weight class. He's going to show up, he's going to perform well, and it's going to be a fun fight. With an early prediction, I'm going to have to go with Max Holloway on this one. I think he's just too skilled and too experienced for Ilia Topuria. I think he might have some problems on the feet early, but he's going to find a way to deal with them, and he's going to be able to use his cardio and his chin to push into Ilia a little bit more, whereas Volk couldn't. Volk was on the back foot almost the entire fight against Ilia until, he got caught. And Max is not going to have to worry about that as much. He's got an unbreakable chin, and there's no way he's going to get put out in one shot. That means he's going to have a lot of extra time to figure out the puzzle of Ilia Topuria without worrying about having his lights put out in one shot. He's going to be able to take a punch to give two, and I think that that's going to be the key to his victory here. Next up on the card, we have what is in all likelihood a #1 contenders fight between Robert Whittaker and Khamzat Chimaev. Now this fight is interesting because these two were supposed to fight earlier this year, but Khamzat Chimaev had to pull out due to illness. He was in the hospital, he looked like he was about to die, to be honest, so I'm just glad that he's actually going to fight again. Now, this fight is a little interesting because it seems like it's a #1 contenders fight, right? You might think that Sean Strickland kind of deserves the title shot over Robert Whittaker, but think about this. Robert Whittaker beat Paulo Costa before Sean Strickland, and he has one more win over Ikram Aliskerov, which, Ikram is not a top contender, but he was still kind of a test, right? We were kind of seeing, oh, is this guy the real deal? Now, that was kind of an easy fight to pick. Everyone knew Whittaker was going to starch him, but still, getting a first-round knockout just proves that he's still at the top of his game, This guy still deserves to be in there with the best of the best. And honestly, the matchup that should have been made is Sean Strickland versus Robert Whittaker for a title eliminator. But in all honesty, I think that if Rob wins here, he's going to get a title shot. And I think that the UFC is going to try to skyrocket Khamzat to a title shot if he gets the victory here as well. So I don't know what's going to happen with Sean Strickland, but he kind of needs to get off Twitter and, fight someone. Because otherwise, I don't know how he expects to get a title shot. I mean, Duplessis and Adesanya are already fighting, so he's not going to fight the winner of that because in all likelihood, the winner of this fight is going to get that fight. So I think Sean Strickland will probably fight the loser of this fight, and then if he wins that, he will get a title shot. As for my early prediction on this fight, I think that if Robert Whittaker can survive the first round, then I think he will just destroy Khamzat Chimaev. We've seen Khamzat not have the greatest cardio. I mean, in his last outing against Kamaru Usman, he arguably 10-8'd Kamaru in the first round, but then he proceeded to lose the next 2 rounds. I think that fight should have been scored a draw, but, it is what it is. Khamzat doesn't have the greatest cardio. He's absolutely amazing in the first round. He's got great wrestling. His chain wrestling is incredible. If he gets you down, you're in big trouble. But I think that his cardio is going to be his downfall. We've seen Robert Whittaker. He's kind of chinny, but he's got pretty good cardio. So I think if he can anti-wrestle the first round, survive when he's on his back, I I think we're going to see him come back in the later rounds of this fight. Now, from what I understand, this fight is a 5-round matchup, which heavily favors Robert Whittaker. So I think one of two things is going to happen. We're either going to see Khamzat come out with much improved cardio, or we're going to see a classic Robert Whittaker performance here, and he's going to get the victory. The next fight on this card, we have Ciryl Gane taking on Alexander Volkov in a highly anticipated rematch. And honestly, this is a fight that I've been wanting to see for a long time. I feel like Volkov's most recent performance over Sergey Pavlovich is, speaking volumes about his growth since the first fight. I think that he's going to be so much improved, whereas Ciryl Gane, he's been making movies. He's doing a Netflix thing, he hasn't been in the gym every day, grinding his butt off the same way Volkov has. Volkov has been relatively active, he's had some good performances, and I think he's going to be a lot better prepared for this matchup. I think we're honestly getting kind of spoiled with the matchups on this card. I think this card is one of the best we're going to see this year, if not the best. It's way better than the Sphere card, and I was looking forward to the Sphere card. I thought it was going to be stacked from head to toe because, it's like a once-in-a-lifetime event at the Sphere. Dana was hyping this thing up like it was going to be the most crazy card we've ever seen. He said once in a lifetime, we're never doing it again, so I was expecting them to go all out, But honestly, this card is better, and I think that this card is going to make up for the lack of, exciting fights on the Sphere card. So I'm totally happy with it. I think that the trade is worth it. And as for an early prediction for this fight, I'm going to have to go with Alexander Volkov. I think he's just improved a lot more than Ciryl Gane. I think we've seen Ciryl, he's showed up to the big title fights, but he hasn't ever really performed against them. He lost to Francis Ngannou, he lost to John Jones. That one was kind of embarrassing. But I think we've seen Alexander Volkov just improve a lot more. He's been more locked in. Ciryl Gane's doing movies and stuff. Alexander Volkov is in the gym. He's ready. He wants to get the belt. He's on a mission. So I think that the difference in this fight is just going to be the dedication that they put into the sport. Now, Ciryl Gane is very skilled. That's not to be taken away from him. So I think he could still get it done with his incredible footwork. But I think that Alexander Volkov is going to be much more improved, and Ciryl Gane will not be ready for it. Now on to the final fight that we're going to talk about today. We have Magomed Ankalaev versus Alexander Rakic. Now, this fight is interesting because a lot of people might think that Magomed Ankalaev deserves a title shot, but he's coming off a win over Johnny Walker. Johnny Walker, right? This guy does not deserve a title shot over that. I think that if he beats Alexander Rakic, I think that they're going to give him a title shot, and I think he'll have earned it by that point. But this is really interesting because that means, well, the UFC is planning something for Alex Pereira, because otherwise they would give Magomed Ankalaev the title shot because I think that he would be the best option. But if Pereira's doing something else, he might be going up to heavyweight to fight Tom Aspinall. So maybe that's the reason that this fight got made in the first place. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But I think that this fight is very interesting because Alexander Rakic is coming off of a loss to Yuri Prohaska, but before he got taken out, he was looking really good. He was chewing up Yuri's legs. He was outstriking him. He was, doing everything right, and he just got caught. The warrior spirit propelled Yuri forward to get him to the victory. But I think it was not a terrible performance from Alexander Rakic. I think we saw a lot in that fight. If he can kind of grit down and, try to walk through Magomed Ankalaev, I think he has a decent shot here. I think we shouldn't just write him off because of his loss to Yuri. I think that he's a lot more skilled than people give him credit for, and even though he is kind of boring, I think this will still be a fun fight. As for an early prediction, I know I just talked up Alexander Rakic, but I'm still going to have to go with Magomed Ankalaev. I think he's just too good. He's too skilled. He should have beaten Jan Blachowicz back when they fought, but that fight was ruled a draw. I thought he won. He should have won, but I think that he is going to be too much for Alexander Rakic. I see him, going to a decision victory, but I think it'll be not even close. I think he's going to put a masterclass on Alexander Rakic. I'm honestly so excited for this fight card. I can't wait for it to happen. I'm so glad that Max and Ilia aren't fighting at altitude. I know some other people were pointing that out, and they were saying, oh, well, we don't want these guys to fight at altitude. People who fight at altitude, their gas tank just goes. But yeah, there's no way they would have Khamzat fight at altitude. Bro wouldn't even make it into the cage. There's just no shot that he would have, anything that he could hold against Robert Whittaker here. But I think that these fights are all going to be super entertaining, except for maybe, Ankalaev versus Rakic. But I think that'll be better than people think it will be. It's kind of like the Bilal-Leon situation. Everyone thought that was going to be terrible. And, it was pretty bad, but it wasn't the worst thing we've ever seen. So that's going to be it for my initial predictions. If you agree or disagree, please let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, share, subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Thank you.